Okay, so this is lecture part 4, and in this one we're going over biotic versus abiotic and an introduction to ecology. So for this part right here, I want to review biotic and abiotic factors. And if you remember what the prefix bio means life, and anytime you have an A in front of something, A means not that, okay? So biotic means living or living things, and abiotic means non-living things, okay? So you see a bunch of pictures here, and you can see that I have them clumped up based on their category. So a person, this guy right here, that would be biotic. Kitty cat, biotic. Bacteria, biotic. Flowers, fungi, all that stuff, they're all living things, so we classify all those as biotic. Interesting thing to point out, though, is all living things, all biotic factors, they all depend on abiotic things or non-living things, okay? So, for example, plants, they depend on the sun, and the sun is a non-living thing. It is abiotic. Also depend on water, which is, of course, abiotic. All living things depend on a certain amount of temperatures. If we're talking about fish, fish have to stay in a specific temperature of water. Another biotic factor that I haven't put a picture on here of is pH. The pH level of water or soil, or maybe the salt level of the water, those are all abiotic factors that affect specific living things. Now, if you look at this picture that I have here, I have a picture of grass and the soil foundation. And if you look at this picture, the grass, of course, would go into the biotic category. And the soil that it depends on, where there's a lot of nutrients and minerals, that would go under the abiotic category, okay? And if you take a look at this picture here, this is a picture of an ecosystem. And remember, in an ecosystem, we look at both biotic and abiotic factors in the area. So if you identify the biotic factors in here, the living things, you would say this deer, this hawk, the grass, the frog, the fish, maybe the bacteria or the fungi living in the area, those are all living things, they're all biotic. And if you take a look at the abiotic factors, that would be the water, the atmosphere, the air conditions, the sunlight, the temperature, the pH of the soil, all those would be abiotic factors. Now let's say I were to take a bunch of pollution or poison or chemicals and I dump that into the water. I change that abiotic factor. Well, that abiotic factor is going to affect the rest of the living things in the area, okay? So all living things depend on specific abiotic factors. And next we move on to levels of organization in ecology. We go on to BECPO, and I went over that with you guys before. BECPO, we have biosphere, ecosystem, community, population, and organism, okay? So the largest level of organization is the biosphere, and that is anywhere that will sustain life. Anywhere on planet Earth that is capable of supporting life, that is considered the entire biosphere, okay? Next, we move on to ecosystems. And again, ecosystems are both biotic and abiotic factors in an area. So if you look at this picture that I used, we have the sun, we have, what else do we have? We have frogs, we have water, we have weeds, we have all that stuff. Those are all biotic and abiotic factors, okay? Now moving down the levels of organization, next we come to community. And what a community is a community is the interactions of all species. So that's why in community ecology, we talk about predation, we talk about competition, we talk about the symbiosis, parasitism, mutualism, commensalism. Those are all different interactions that species will have with each other in a community, okay? Next, we move on to population. Population, we study the dynamics of just one species. So, for example, we might look at how does the whole population of elephants grow or decrease, or what are factors that may affect populations. And then finally, we talk about an individual organism, just a single elephant. That would be an example of the lowest level of organization in ecology. Next, we go into looking at the differences between a habitat and a niche. Again, a habitat would be an organism's home, his place of residence, if you will. And when you look at the niche of an organism would simply just be their job. So again, I used the same example before in a previous lecture. If I take a look at these 4 insects, I have a millipede, I have an ant, centipede, and an earthworm. All 4 of these insects, they may all share the same habitat. They may all share the same home under this log right here, okay? Let's say all 4 of these guys live around this log. Well, sure, they all have the same home. However, they will all have very different jobs, very different purposes when they live in that area, okay? For example, the millipede over here, this guy's job may be to eat decaying leaves or grasses or roughage or anything like that, just decaying plants around the area. However, when we take a look at an ant's job, an ant's job may be to get rid of decaying insects around the area, any decaying, dead bugs around the area. Then when we look at the centipede right here, this guy, you could tell this guy's made for battle just by the way he's shaped. This guy is going to, fight off some beetles that may come around or any other insects that may try to move in on the territory. And finally, we have an earthworm. And an earthworm is going to rummage through the soil, return nutrients back to the soil, and just eat decomposing things in the soil. So again, all 4 of these insects all have the same habitat. They all have very different jobs, though, in that same habitat. And if you remember, a few weeks ago, we were talking about habitat loss and biodiversity. Well, here's a prime example. If I were to completely destroy or set fire to this log or destroy this log completely, this log is gone. I just disrupted the habitat of not only one, but all 4 of these different organisms that all have different jobs, okay? So the loss of one habitat will affect a huge variety of species and affect the biodiversity in that area, in that habitat. Okay, and the next thing I want to go over is an energy pyramid. Basically, all an energy pyramid shows is the transfer of energy as something gets eaten by something else, okay? And if you remember, this bottom level right here, each level is called a trophic level, okay? So each level is called a trophic level. And if you remember, all the energy originates from the sun. And this energy gets stored through photosynthesis in glucose. And we're going to take a look at how this energy moves up the pyramid, okay? So plants, they are the first level. They're always the first level. And they're always called primary producers, okay? They're going to store all this energy in a usable form for all other life, okay? So they are primary producers. When we take a look at this next level right here, right after, this level is called primary consumers, because they are the first level of organisms that has to get their nutrients from something else. They are the first level of heterotrophs, okay? And as we move up, these are all consumers, but this would be secondary consumer. This would be tertiary. And this last one right here, this would be quaternary. And all that means is primary, first level consumer, secondary consumer, second level consumer, tertiary would be third level, and quaternary would be fourth level consumer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase this real quick. And the other thing I wanted to point out about the energy pyramid to review with you is if we look at each level, if you look at the primary producers, or this bottom level right here, how much energy is available? Well, that's 100%, okay? And this is the rule of 10. As we move up the energy pyramid, as we go up, only 1/10 of that energy moves up the pyramid, okay? So at the secondary consumers, we have 1/10 of 100, which would be 10%. As we go to the third level, we have 1/10 of that energy moves up, which is 1%. And then so on and so forth. So this third level consumer would be 0.1, and the quaternary be 0.01, okay, percent. And again, if only 10% of that energy is moving up the energy pyramid, where's all the rest of that going? Well, the rest of that energy is being released into the atmosphere as heat, okay? And I think that's it for this portion of the study guide for part 4, all right?